This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here today with someone I've not seen for over a year.
Long
Emma
time.
Garner, winemaker at 30 Bench up there in the Beamsville Bench. How are you today, Emma? And how are you keeping in these troubled times?
Yeah, I am doing well, thanks, Jamie. Moving and a shaking and just trying to keep up with everything that's still ongoing. As you know, in our world, grapes don't stop. They don't really care for
Yeah.
pandemics. So grapes grow and wines are made. And actually, it's been a great part of the year for us. It's given us some normalcy in this chaotic, crazy year that we've been navigating. So there's no shortage of things to keep us interested and
Well, you'll
busy.
be busy with that vineyard behind you because it looks like a
I know
week
we're
ahead of,
well ahead of
yeah.
schedule. You can see in March, yeah. Got some picking baskets out there too.
Yes.
So we're all ready to
So,
go.
so you'll never forget the 2020 vintage, I'm sure. What was
Mhm.
the first way that the pandemic impacted operations at 30 Bench?
Well, the first wave was just oh man, it went back to March really, and just trying to figure out how we were going to take care of our 2019 wines and get them into bottle while
Mhm.
keeping everyone safe. Safety obviously was paramount for us. There was a good question and a good period of time when we weren't sure of what we were going to be able to do, as with everyone when all of this started. And then keeping everyone safe, as I mentioned, was at the forefront of our minds, and we just managed to navigate things, put in protocols, ton of safety procedures just to make
Mhm.
sure everyone was distanced, sanitation, all of that kind of stuff, and we were able to maintain getting all the wines finished, but also in bottle as well. Then for the 2020 vintage, for us, and as you know, we work closely with the team at Trius as well as
Yeah.
Peller. So we do historically tend to have quite an influx of internationals that come and help us with harvest. So this year, as you can imagine, that was pared right down.
Yes,
We
yes.
did have one German individual join us this year, which was fun. So we had one international,
Okay.
but usually it's about 50% of our
Yes,
team.
yeah.
So we had to look to local talent, which again was great. So now we've got some homegrown investment, and in some respects, it's great because now those people are more familiar with our products and our vineyards and our properties, and a few of them are coming back to join us again for harvest this year. So that was one of the massive benefits.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's
it was
nice
it
to
was.
hear. It's nice to hear good stories like that, and
Hmm. Yeah.
that's great that you actually managed to employ some people locally. That makes me
Yeah,
very happy.
absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah, it does,
So,
doesn't it?
so how was the harvest itself?
It was incredible, and again, it was one of those pluses of 2020. Like we were making jokes of what a hand we were all dealt, but at least the grapes were in great
Right,
shape.
right.
A wonderful warm summer, as you probably
Mhm.
recall. It was dry, and the fall was stunning. And that's really when, for me, the wines are either made or broken, or my job's either sailing into the finish line or made extremely difficult based on the moisture that we see in the fall. And it was a really warm, dry fall. And so as a result, disease pressure was low. Hitting those benchmark maturity levels that we tend to aim for every year was no problem. And despite the fact that it was such a hot summer, I'm amazed at the intensity of acidity and vibrancy that's still in the more delicate wines and our sparklings as well as our aromatics. So it's across the board. Next week we have our Bordeaux blending sessions scheduled, but we've done all of our aromatics, our sparkling, as well as Pinot and Chards, and across the board they look amazing. I
Oh,
think
that's good to
everyone
hear.
anticipated a great Bordeaux year, but yeah, at this point everything looks really, really great. So like super excited.
And yields and the like?
Yields were down slightly, but not
Right.
tremendously. Like some varieties were a little bit lower than others. Like Chardonnay was down quite substantially, so our Chard numbers this year were quite small. As you can remember, that because of the dry summer, the bunches were a bit smaller, so just bunch weights were down.
Right.
But across the board, we still did fairly well. The winter was kind to us. We didn't have any residual winter damage, and the spring frost wasn't a threat either. So in that respect, we didn't have any residual damage, but the only reduction in tonnage really was due to just smaller bunches. But then again, that helps us with the intensity of fruit and
Of course,
subsequent wine. So yeah.
indeed. Now, when I asked this question to Ontario winemakers, they all have slightly different answers. How did all of this impact your sales?
It's interesting you should ask that question. So when it all hit last March, and again, I'm talking about the company as a whole. So as you know, we're
Mhm.
very closely connected to Andrew Peller Limited, and there was a lot of pantry hoarding going on. So in some of our SKUs, we saw 30% increases in sales, like a lot of the
Interesting.
value
Yeah.
wines.
Right.
I would say more so from a premium standpoint, there was a reduction in sales. Ice wine across the board, as I'm sure you probably heard, has
Yes.
certainly softened, mainly because of lack of travel. So
Yep.
that's where we sell a lot of our wine. So it stands to reason if we're not able to travel, then the sales will be down there. But across the board, we're doing fairly well, which is great. And what gives me great indication of that is just looking at our initial bottling dates for our 2020 wines. And there's been the request for early bottling on a tremendous amount of the SKUs that we produce. So that's always a good sign.
Did you see much of a switch over to online sales, or were you sticking with
Yes.
sorry, you did have a lot of online sales.
Oh, a ton. And for us, online platform is not something that we really focused on. Like we would
Right,
tend to
right.
have 10 sales, like, well, even less than that weekly. Again, I'm speaking for the company as a whole. So we launched an e-commerce platform, thewineshops.com, where you can purchase 30 bench wines as well. And we went from having about 5 to 10 sales a week to 3 to 400 a day.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, and it's all a part of that pivoting,
Yes,
when
of course.
all of this happened, as you can imagine, like you've seen, I was just doing some reading of business models that were successful last year, and some of the bars, offering virtual mixology classes, and we have our members weekend where instead of inviting everyone to wine country, we offered some virtual tastings as well as some experiences, which was a lot of fun. So it's just a matter of not redefining what we do, but just finding another way to get it to people if the people can't come to us. And the e-commerce platform was essential to helping wines and all of our portfolio move along, actually.
Now, excuse my ignorance on keeping up to date with who is in which colored band or zone or whatever the
Mhm.
province are doing. How do things stand with regards to your um, cellar door trade and your tasting bar right now?
So we are open to the public again.
Okay.
We were always open for curbside
Yeah.
pickup. So you could order, purchase, and then we would bring it out to your car. But we are able to have host tastings now again with I'm just trying to think. I can't think of the exact number, so don't quote me on it on how many people are allowed in
Right.
the
Right.
store. But yeah, the numbers are well down, and the restaurants as well. I think they can have a maximum of 10 people in dining, 4 per table from the same household. So it's still quite small. So just rethinking about the spaces that we currently have, knowing that we can't have them at capacity, getting creative as to where we can host guests and still offer a stellar experience.
Have you been satisfied with the way that the different levels of government have mitigated and managed this problem we've been going through?
That is a big question,
Oh,
Jamie.
yes, I know.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to be critical, right,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
we're living it. But again, this is in totally uncharted territory
yeah,
for any of us to have to navigate. And I think at the beginning, I think the government did a great job at trying to ensure people had access to funds, like the
yeah,
CERB. Maybe wasn't managed as properly as it should have been. But again, it's easy to say that after the fact.
yeah,
But they needed to react quickly. I think my biggest uh, area of criticism right now is just the vaccination rollout. And
yeah,
again, I
yeah.
don't know exactly what's at play, but my perception is, and when we're looking at other countries, it's gone much more swiftly. So that's something that I would hope that quickens in the next little while. But that's, for the most part, I think we were given support where we needed it.
Good, good.
And yeah, it's again, it's difficult to say. It's an easy one to poke holes in.
Of course, both of us will have terrible concerns for our friends in hospitality right now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So it's been interesting just to see how, again, they've pivoted their business models.
Yeah,
I've had a lot of friends, once the warmer weather came, create outdoor spaces,
yeah,
because that was obviously some way that they could continue to maintain some sort of level of population in their
mhm,
restaurants. And just servers as a whole, like looking to see what else. I know we at the beginning of all this, it was a bit of a twofold issue where we were unable to get vineyard support. We're fortunate a lot of our vineyard support comes from Hamilton, the Vietnamese community there, but a lot of their family members come over from Vietnam and they were unable to do so. So just looking to, wherever possible,
yeah.
partner with the just the hospitality world, knowing that there are servers out of work. So
Yeah,
there
of
were some
course. Yeah.
instances where, yeah, they were out helping in the vineyard. It's funny within our company as well, like just folks that would typically be working, like our head chef at Trius, Frank Dodd, he was working at the
Yes.
distribution center
Oh, really? Oh,
packing orders. Yeah, and it
oh,
was
wow. Good on him.
all hands on deck. So as the ecom world got really crazy and
Mm.
excited, we needed help. And so people who weren't doing anything within the company, there was no, well, it's not my job attitude. It was they were all in this together and let's get it done. And it was really amazing to see everyone band together in that respect.
Well, Frank's definitely not a man to sit on his hands. I can imagine
No,
him
he's
being all
not.
in for it. Yeah. So, oh, that's
Absolutely, yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely. So yeah, there was a lot of great teamwork and just effort across the board that came out this year. So
On a personal level, I always like to end these interviews on a kind of high note. What was the most valuable thing that you have learned throughout the last 12 months of this still ongoing pandemic?
hmm how much I miss my friends when I'm unable just to go
Right.
and
Yeah.
have fun, right? Like I think for me, the biggest learning, and I think it's something that we always assume, that just making the most of those little moments, instead of back in the old days when it was you could go out and do whatever you wanted whenever you wanted.
Yeah.
Just the choice to stay home and watch a show instead seems so enticing sometimes.
Yeah.
Whereas now to go out and just see people again is something that I think again, I was always assumed was extremely important to me, but now you
Yes.
just realize that much more that that human contact is something that's I can't wait to get back to and just have it in a more normalized fashion.
Well, there's so many things that I believe we took for granted, and now we're kind of like
And
pining for that normality that we took for granted.
absolutely. Like, oh, you know what? No, we're gonna go home. It's late, but
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna stay for one more drink. Like,
And
when
I
we're
don't
able
know
to
if
do it.
I don't know if like many of my friends, they say that they have completed Netflix, so they've kind of, they kind of
Just binge
gone to the
right through
final
it. Yeah.
level of Netflix and just watched everything on there.
They
So
hit
it's
the boss battle and they're done. They
oh,
won.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
It's too
Well,
funny.
Emma, we're going to be tasting some wines with you over the coming weeks,
Certainly.
so
Yeah,
I'm looking
excited.
forward to catching up with you over a glass of wine
Sounds awesome.
extremely soon. Thank you very much for joining us today at Good
All
Food
right.
Revolution. Bye for now.
Take care, Jamie. Bye bye.